Hello and welcome to the chat room presented to you by China Global Television Network. I'm Yang Zhao, CGTN reporter. It has been 12 days since Russia carried out its special military operation to neighboring Ukraine, and the chat room has been closely watching this conflict. And today I'll be joined by Ken Huang, chief editor of Russian service CGTN, Shen Shuwei, politics analyst, and CGTN reporter Li Jingjing, who's covering two sessions, which is China's political season. Sorry, Jingjing, to keep you busy, but welcome to chat room. Also joining us later will be our analysts, reporters, and stringers in Russia, Ukraine, and the rest of the world for a deep analysis on this issue. And also strongly recommend you to be part of this conversation by sending your topics and questions that you want us to talk in this chat room to stringer@cgtn.com. So now let's check out some of the latest developments on the ground. Also, I'll be joined by Daniel Hawkins, our Moscow-based correspondent for CGTN. Welcome, Daniel. After a brief ceasefire, Russian forces step up overnight shelling of Ukrainian cities in the center, north, and south of this country on Sunday night. Areas that came under heavy shelling, including the outskirts of Kiev, Chernihiv, Mykolaiv, and Kharkiv, the country's second largest city. Ken, how about we start with you about an overall evaluation of this current situation? What do you think of this ongoing of this conflict?
目前情况看呢，这个地面的军事冲突呢还在持续发展当中啊。当然，随着昨天和今天啊，这个两度宣布这个军事行动呢进入静默期。
The current situation, we are seeing that the on-ground conflict is still continuous with the two terms negotiations. And while it is officially announced as a silent period to leave the humanitarian passage for the local Ukrainian people, the severity on the battleground has shrinked in separate regions, but actually in the city of Kiev and Kharkov, there are still some of the conflict between the two troops, especially in the suburbs of the Kiev, especially in the town of Yelpinsk. It is a very small town to the north of the Kiev, one of the strongholds during the battlefield. It is like the gateway to the city of Kiev. There were quite severe battle occurred on the site. At the same time, the Russian troops is also using the land battlefield to launch a series of the attacks. And there's a city called Vinnytsia to the south of to the west of Ukraine, and the Russian troops were designed to attack the local airport, which this is an airport for the civilian and military usage. Currently, although the Russian troops has controlled the air in Ukraine, but the local Ukrainian governmental units has transferred a lot of military air flights into the western part of Ukraine. Definitely, the Ukrainian troops has a relatively limited air force and air power. And according to the latest report, the Russian troops has attacked 4 Ukrainian airplanes. This is to our huge surprise, because under such a situation, the Ukrainian troops can also fight back with 4 airplanes. This has surprised us a lot. And recently, we heard that President Putin has telephoned President Emmanuel Macron. And during that telephone, he clearly noted that he is going to attack Odessa, which is a city to the south part of Ukraine. In the city and in the region of Donbas and the area of Donbas and Lugansk, it is announced that the military forces has been pushing the borders on the previous borders, and the previous border is roughly under Russian army's control.
But we want to focus in this section. I want to focus on the battlefields. We talked about the Russian forces are shelling of the Kiev, Chernihiv, the Mykolaiv, Kharkiv, and Ken just mentioned about the Russians' cruise missile completely destroying Vinnytsa's regional airport outside Kiev. What update do you have for this battlefields?
Well, first and foremost, of course, the Russian Air Force is continuing targeting what they call Ukrainian military targets all over the country. You're quite right. The airfield outside Vinnytsia was destroyed over the last 24 hours. President Zelensky saying it was targeted by around 8 missiles. That was also, of course, the headquarters of the Ukrainian Air Force. And as Ukraine's Air Force is depleted, of course, that explains President Zelensky's pleas for European states to send fighter jets to Ukraine. That's certainly been a big debate among European allies of Ukraine and Washington over the last few days. I want to bring you some news that has come in over the last 24 hours. Poland has said it will not be sending fighter jets and will not allow its airfields to be used for the sending of fighter jets to Ukraine. And just very recently coming in, Hungary has also issued an order banning the sending of weapons to Ukraine, of military equipment to Ukraine. That's come in from Prime Minister Orban, just as I've been speaking to you. So it's clear there isn't such a united front, of course, among NATO allies about what to do in the sense about supplying arms to Ukraine. In terms of military developments, Russian forces continue pushing towards key strategic targets in Ukraine. They've pushed further west from Donetsk and Lugansk. That's perhaps been the easiest place for Russian forces to push because they've had support from the militia forces of the Donetsk and Lugansk Republic. They've also had perhaps slightly more support there from the local ethnic Russian populace than in other places in Ukraine, where, of course, they've been met with hostility and with great resistance. Their priority now is linking that southern corridor between Donetsk and Lugansk republics and Mariupol, which is, of course, under siege, and where those civilians have been trying to escape, and moving on that southern corridor towards Odessa, though we understand UK intelligence services say that Odessa will not be a target, at least for now, of the Russian advance. They're also advancing from the south to north across the Dnieper River to target those urban centers you mentioned, to Prussia, Mykolaiv and Zaporozhye. And of course, the key one from the north, advancing towards Kiev. There has been heavy fighting and shelling over the last couple of days around Irpin, which is a town very, very close already to the outskirts of Kiev center.
Yep.
That is, of course, a very prime and symbolic target of the Russian military. Their targets so far, their aim so far has not been to capture ground or capture city centers. It's been to drive forward towards key targets of military infrastructure and symbolic cities such as Kiev, of course, which will, if captured, be a big depletion of morale for the Ukrainian armed forces and for the people that have also taken up arms to fight off the Russian army.
Yeah. Shuwei, we've been closely watching the whole situation for a few days. What is your overall evaluation to this current situation? Is the pace of attack is slowing down, or whatever? What's your point?
No, I think the pace is still okay for both sides, because now from both sides they are doing for the humanitarian corridor issue, and they will also discuss the details in the third round of talks. But there will be some new development as we see from Putin Macron's phone call. The Russian Air Force will bomb the southern ports, which is a strategic point for Ukraine. And previously we know for the early military operations, the Russian forces has bypassed that city, the Odessa. And now they go back to bomb this important city. So we will see what will be the latest issue for the battlefield. And I think the progress of the battlefield is also a support for their negotiations, because after all, they will both sides need a peace agreement or other kind of agreement to end this conflict. So I think this military operation can be also can help both sides to gain a bargaining chip in the negotiations. So if Ukraine governments want to have more bargaining chips to fulfill their demand, that means they need more victory. So now, but now the situation is not so clear right now.
Daniel, both Ken and Shui mentioned about us planning airstrikes on the Odessa. And we know that Russian troops are landed on Odessa, but they didn't attack these areas. But why now they choose to take the airstrikes to this port city?
Odessa, of course, is one of the key port cities alongside that southern corridor, as I mentioned, Melitopol, Mariupol as well. And the tactical aim of the Russian forces is, as I said, to link that key southern corridor from Donetsk and Lugansk republics along to Odessa to dominate that whole southern area of Ukraine. That's going to isolate the southern Ukrainian cities from weapons supplies, from ammunition supplies, from other supplies coming in from the north and from the west, where there's no Russian military presence at this stage in time. If we're to look at the bigger picture, I think the Russian army's aim right now is to perhaps cut off, to separate the Ukrainian armed forces along the Dnieper River, which runs pretty much through the center of Ukraine and just past Kiev. But as I say, their aim, their tactic is not to engage, or to engage as little as possible in urban fighting, in urban conflict, which is where Ukrainian both regular forces and militia forces have been trying to engage them, to bog them down. For Ukraine, this is about winning time. We mentioned bargaining ships there. Both sides are trying to build up those bargaining. For Russia, it is showing that this war is militarily unwinnable for Ukraine. And I'm no military strategist, I don't claim to be. The forces here are very unequal, even with support from NATO states, from Western states, the arms that have been pouring in, the volunteers. The forces, the disparity is just too great. And the aim for Ukraine, as one member of their delegation said just yesterday, is to make Russia realize the true cost of this war. And there are undoubtedly costs to this war. The ruble has hit record lows today on the forex market. Dozens of companies have pulled out of Russia across all sectors. And there is a great really uncertainty about the future, the short-term future of the Russian economy. Billions are being spent on this military operation each week. And with every day and week that goes by, and of course, as the Vietnam syndrome, the body bags coming home kicks in, the Russian government risks losing both foreign image and public support, while the Ukrainian government, of course, seeks to draw this out as long as possible and seeks to encourage its Western allies to maximize that support. I think the next 5 to 6 days are going to be very crucial in terms of the Russian army's advance on Kiev from the north, capturing those key port cities in the south as well. And of course, we'll have to see what comes from those negotiations. They are going to start in around half an hour's time on the Polish-Ukrainian border. The topics for discussion are likely to be the earlier topics: ceasefires, humanitarian corridors. It's not likely to be any groundbreaking decisions. They will have to be taken at a higher level for long-term resolution of this conflict. But priority for now, and this is something both sides have agreed on, is to create a ceasefire and to agree on those humanitarian corridors, those humanitarian routes out for civilians.
Okay, so I've been told, thank you, Daniel. I've been told we have been joined by our CGTN reporter, Dmitry Maslak, who's in Donetsk, Ukraine. Hello, Dmitry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you doing? Dmitry has been closely working with Ken, so I'll hand it over to Ken.
Yeah. Дмитрий.
Да.
Да, добрый день. Сейчас, наверное, у вас как раз полдень дня, но в Пекине, правда, уже вечером. Очень рад вас видеть в эфире. Сейчас у вас очень тяжелое положение. Вот тут ситуация, конечно, довольно-таки тяжелая. Так что расскажите, пожалуйста, какое у вас ощущение?
I'm very happy to see you here right now. You have a very difficult situation right now. Please tell us, what feeling do you have that you have in the middle of a heavy battle? Good evening, Beijing. Now it's a day in Beijing, in Donetsk. We are now in the most difficult region, is the border of Donetsk. It's closely attached to the front line. We have the all the battle troops is 4 or 5 kilometers away. Every day we can hear shellings around the whole city. Now we have reinforced measures of safety, and one of the commander of the next troops, they are afraid of some sabotage and some provocations. So there are lots of shellings, lots of shootings, like from the weapons and from the heavy artillery. Now at my back we can see the whole destroyed part of the building, and there are no glasses. We don't have glasses deficit in Donetsk. We just have the plastic cover for the windows. Likely we don't have anyone died, but in Kiev region in Donetsk, people are feeling very bad, but still are get used to the war because they are very close to the war action line. Today is a very rare day that we are here in this day, but every day we go to the border where we have the attacks and war actions. We can see Ukrainian troops there. They left it several days ago. You can see the maps and the plans of this route. It was a village called Granitne. It's under Volnovakha. It's a world-famous Volnovakha. We are all fighting for Volnovakha right now. The situation there is pretty difficult. Are you going to abstract from it? But the situation is very difficult. People don't have water, no gas, no electricity, no internet, no heating. They're asking for coal from us. They're kneeling and asking us, begging us for coal. We're cold. We have no water, but we have nothing to offer. Dmitry, we have the material from the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation. We have the situation in Donetsk troops. They are all coming forward. They're still coming forward. Right now, probably we have the intensive fights between Ukrainians and Russian military troops. Is it true? Yes, the heavy fights are being continued, and we have Volnovakha. They are fighting for Volnovakha. On the south, there are two regions that are strategically important: Mariupol and Volnovakha. Volnovakha is the point where where they're fighting for this part, and Donetsk troops are fighting for Volnovakha, and they are step by step fighting and going forward. They don't give us the opportunity to go through humanitarian corridors. Is it because of Mariupol? It's from Volnovakha. It's Volnovakha and Mariupol all together. I have some information. It's 6 corridors, but they don't work right now. They are not working because they don't let people go. Everyone says they are using people as a live shield. I will try to show you. You can see it's one part, yes, of metal piece. You see? You can see right now, yes? It's coming in very high speed. At very high speed, it's coming to people's heads. And do you think the peaceful civilians, are they being evacuated from Mariupol? We didn't go to Mariupol. We are in Volnovakha. It's for the next troops. It's a very important place. All the journalists from abroad, Ukrainian and the foreign journalists, they are all around Volnovakha. They don't go to Mariupol, hardly can make it to Mariupol. It's because the corridors, humanitarian corridors, are not working. So we are personally personally saw as simple people, like the driver could take the family with kids and some pensioners. They hardly, by some miracle, they could hardly make it to this corridor. But people say very scary things about the corpse and bodies outside and in the buildings, lots of injured, lots of destruction. Now we're doing the negotiations with them, not to try to reach some regions of Volnovakha, to show you guys and to see with our own eyes. Thank you, Dmitry. We understood you. We will support you, Dmitry. We will try to show you some help. Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. Bye-bye.
通了个话啊，这个聊了一下。目前呢，据他介
Let me
绍
sum it up.
整体的情况啊，还是陷
Since
入
we
了
are
这个
connecting with the frontline reporter, Neutrality, for the few chats, and according to his introduction, the whole situation on the ground is being trapped into a stalemate. Currently, the Ukrainian governmental troops is around 4 to 5 kilometers away from the city of Donetsk. That is to say, the front line is quite close to the city of Donetsk. The scattered bombardment has occurred one after another, and we can see in the background there are some of the bombardment, which is creating a lot of chaos for the local government. And he has shown us a piece of the bombardment. You can see that this kind of shells is actually flying around, creating a lot of damage for the local residents. And the Russian troops has opened up 6 humanitarian corridors together with the Donbas local government. Covers areas including the Mariupol, but actually this humanitarian corridor is not working very good. Not a few of the people can live through this humanitarian corridor. Overall speaking, the situation is quite tense.
Background on this area in Donbas. The whole area is called Donbas, right? Why this area? And what's the relationship of this area with Russia, with Ukraine? Why did everything just happen? And Shui, you're also welcome to jumping anytime you want.
OK。这个简单讲呢，这个地区呢，这顿巴斯呢，是因为原来这地方有一个这个非常大的煤田，这个在世界上啊，这个顿巴斯这个煤田呢，也是这个名列前茅的啊，这个顿巴斯本来这个地。
The region is called Donbas because it used to be one of the richest field for the coal production. The region of Donbas is being combined and abbreviated by several different words, and according to its Russian spelling, it is what we call the integrations of the coal field, the coal mines. The region used to be a very important heavy industrial heart. It is the homeland to the coal mining industries, heavy industries, and high manufacturing industries. The region of the Donbas is accounting for around 70% of the industrial output in Ukraine. We can interpret that this region is very important. The region of Donbas is composed of the 2 states, the states of Lugansk and the state of Donbass. And after the event of Crimea in the year 2014, these two states declared independence after a referendum. Definitely, this referendum has not been officially recognized by the Ukrainian government. So this is such a stalemate that there are massive scale of the military conflict occurred between the Donbas civil troops and also the Ukrainian governmental troops. Definitely, any military conflict has brought a lot of human casualties, creating a lot of damage to the local economies. Later, this issue was tried to be addressed in the Normandy four-party negotiations. After rounds of diplomatic negotiations, the Minsk Agreement was signed, which did not being fully put into effect and fully being implemented because these parties are differed a lot in terms of their principles. Let me give you one example. In the Minsk Agreement, it is cited quite clearly these two parties need to withdraw from the front line. And the two parties host a very deep hostilities against each other. They don't trust each other. And finally, the Minsk Agreement has never been put into implementations while the conflict has escalated, creating what we are experiencing today.
Ukraine government demand that all the Russian troops need to withdraw from all its territory, including the Donbas region. But now we see the Ukraine government cannot have the full control of these two regions, and we all know that since the 2014, after the two republics self-declared as republics, the Russian government has started the integration process with the two parts, and they are more economically and politically are have more links with Moscow. So now that has caused a problem that Ukraine government cannot fully control the region, but now they still insist that their territorial sovereignty and the integrity shall not be violated. But that was not accepted by Moscow. So that is one of the key parts why two sides cannot reach a peace agreement. So that is the key problem. So if we cannot solve that properly, so the risks for future conflicts will still remain. So that is the most worrying situation.
对，另外我们如果是从法律层面是吧来看待这个问题的话呢，就是我们把明斯克协议翻出来是吧看的，当时啊。 这个各方呢，这个都达成一致意见，就是说。
From the legal interpretation, let's read the Minsk Agreement word by word. At that time, these different stakeholders has reached agreement that they are going to give the autonomy to the state of Donbass and the state of Lugansk, and the Ukrainian government needs to readjust its constitution to guarantee the sovereignty and independence of these two places. It is a very difficult act to carry upon because any changes in the constitution takes many years, and finally the Minsk Agreement is not fully carried upon. This is one of the deeply rooted reasons behind this special military operation of the Russian side, because they think the Minsk Agreement has not been fully implemented, especially those in term in favor of the Russian side. And Russia has emphasized for many times that Russia is not a party in the Minsk Agreement. To deal with the place of the Republic of Lugansk and Minsk, it should be some of the problem being addressed by the state, the Republic's government, and also the Ukrainian government. Russia's position has decided once again that this conflict is inevitable during the process.
About this, how people say about this current situation. I mean, as this conflict is ongoing, as the military operation is ongoing, the sentiment on the social media might change as time goes by. Any updates on this?
I just want to point out that there's a outrage online because although everybody have their sympathy with people in Ukraine and Russia, but there's apparently during this crisis, I'm sorry, I'm hearing different voices from our director, so I will take my earpiece
off. No worry about that.
So basically, there's outrage online because you know what? There's a huge racism during this crisis, during this war, and that's the level of racism is like all over the world. First, we do see that people of color, black people, brown people, cannot cross the border as refugees, and so many people from India, Indian students from Africa, they're already shouting out on the internet like, help us, because basically the soldiers are telling us to go back to the row. They only let white people to cross the border. That's unacceptable on any level in any other country. And I saw a clip of an African descendant. When he crossed the border, not only the soldiers stopped him from crossing, the soldier actually asked him, well, we only let white people out, but we can give you a gun. You fight for Ukraine. I mean, why? Why Ukraine people can flee the country, but you leave the black people there to fight for Ukraine? That's unacceptable. So there's a huge racism when the people are crossing the border, but the racism is also on the media coverage. I'm not sure the reporters of the Western mainstream media realize that their racism is really triggered a huge outrage in the third world, in the global south. For example, I cannot finish. There's so many lists. I can name a few. For example, there's a Ukraine government official when he connected with the BBC host. He said, "I'm so emotional seeing this conflict happening because I see people with blue hair and blue eyes being killed." Mm-hmm. And there's another reporter from CBS. He's basically saying, "Oh,
I saw that video. I saw that video that you mentioned."
Yeah, and also this place is not Afghanistan or Iraq, that place that we normally see wars. This place is relatively civilized and European. Mm-hmm. And he's not the only reporter. Western reporters, white reporters are saying the same thing. How can this happen in Europe? We are not the third world. We are not Iraq or Afghanistan. This is Europe. So their outrage is not because people were suffering from war. Their outrage is the war. Why is the war is happening in our first well-developed, civilized Europe? I mean, that's unacceptable. And people have this huge outrage, global outrage, and for a sympathy for the war, for the people in Ukraine. And I'm sure people in Ukraine have every right to be outraged, to have the sympathy from everyone. But you know, such things, such war happens every day across the world, in the Middle East, in Africa. Why only this will have this huge outrage?
Well, I have to say there's a lot of the phenomenal on the social media to talk about. We can talk about that later. And also, we've been joined by Mr. Rong Yung, our international relationship expert. Mr. Rong, are you with us? Hello, Mr. Rong. Hello, Mr. Rong. Welcome to the chat room. And we are expected to have like third round of peace talk in the border in Belarus. We believe this in Belarus. And what can we expect for a third round of negotiation?
Well, I'm not sure we can expect much, even though the very fact that the talks has been going on is a positive development. And I think we remember that the second round of talks reached some agreement about the ceasefire so that a safe passage for humanitarian humanitarianism.
Yeah, humanitarian corridors and a brief ceasefire has been discussed in the second round.
Unfortunately, it didn't work out very well, and there have been accusations and counter-accusations. But now, I think the Russian side, the Russian military again said that they would like to do it again. So this is a good sort of a good sign. But otherwise, I think I see that the two sides, the Russians and the Ukrainians, are all very much steadfast about their own positions. So I don't see that there were big surprise with the coming, even though that the two sides agree to talk is a welcome sort of development.
Okay, Daniel, do you have any updates? Do you have further information on the third round of the peace talk? Who will be participated, and what are they going to talk about?
And the third round of talks are going to take place now at 5 o'clock Moscow time. So there is a bit of a delay. It's going to be in around, 2.5 hours time. We don't know what's caused that delay. More importantly, though, and this is something we've spoken about before, about the level of these negotiations, they are fairly low level, on the level of representatives of parliament, former ministers or deputy ministers. Now, confirmation just coming in right now. The foreign minister of Turkey has said Mr. Lavrov, the head of the Russian foreign ministry, and Mr. Kuleba of the Ukrainian foreign ministry are going to meet in Antalya. Those talks are going to take place on the 10th of March. between the foreign ministers of Russia and Ukraine, mediated presumably by the Turkish foreign minister or indeed President Erdogan himself. We do know Mr. Putin and Mr. Erdogan held talks over the last 24 to 36 hours where the Turkish president urged his Russian counterpart to stop this conflict as soon as possible and expressed the desire of Turkey to mediate what's going on through peaceful means. This is a really key development after 10 days of peace talks, which really failed to achieve anything substantial apart from humanitarian corridors, which sadly broke down, both sides accusing each other of violating them. This is certainly an interesting development. We also understand, again, this is news coming in just as I'm speaking to you, the German cabinet, the cabinet of Germany, voting against, or not voting against, rather, expressing their concerns about replacing Russian oil imports, saying that it's going to take time to find alternative energy sources, alternative oil imports, and a cold winter and a destabilized energy market is very much a concern. So again, this really highlights a lack of unity among Europe about how to deal with this crisis. They've certainly been very united, very vocal in their condemnation of Russia. They brought in sanctions unprecedented level. These are sectoral sanctions like we saw after Crimea. And these are sanctions which are going to have and are already having a massive impact on the Russian financial market. But there is a lack of unity about what to do next. The longer this conflict drags on, the bigger the costs are going to be, not only for Europe, but for the global economy. I believe that's something we'll talk about a bit later as well.
Yeah, we're talking about this economic impact and all of these things later about this, because we believe this conflict will bring a huge influence to the world in the future. And Mr. Rowe, we have the humanitarian corridor. They have discussed the humanitarian corridor. They have discussed the brief ceasefire in a second round of negotiation. But do you think they have to reaching out to the core interest? Or what exactly is the core interest of this negotiation?
Well, as far as I can see, that the agreement that between the two sides on addressing the humanitarian situation is good, is positive. It has to be welcome. But it seems that in the meantime, we have to be very careful. It seems that there are sort of possibilities that either the two sides or the other one or the other is wanted to use this question or this issue of humanitarian situation for political or weapons, or to politicize this. And this has been very much clear for the Western media. So from the Russians' perspective, I think the very fact that they agreed to work along this line can be understood that is meant to sort of reduce the pressure or the international opinion. While the other side, the Ukraine side, I think it seems that this is a sort of a leverage. This is a kind of a mean or instrument to pressurize Russia. So if it is the case, then I would say it would be very difficult to achieve anything concrete. And not to mention that the implementation of the agreement can be very difficult, messy, and there are also, it would go along with acquisition and counter-acquisition. That's why I think the Chinese side, very recent afternoon, I think the State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi put forward his 6-point proposals on humanitarians to address a humanitarian situation. I think first and foremost sort of proposal is we have to really take care about that, but in the meantime to be careful to prevent the politicalization of the humanitarian situation. So the very purpose to have peace talks and for sort of a ceasefire is, I think we have to really address with sincerity of these issues. And for that, I think not only the two sides, but also the international community, particularly the West, has to be really come forward to that. And so far, at least myself, I have not learned and have not learned much along this line. Rather, contrarily, I will see the reports, I will see the statements by the West on capitalizing the humanitarian situation and to pressurize Russia. This is not a responsible way. This is, for me, not a moral way to do that.
Yeah, I'm talking about Mr. Wang Yi's speaking now. Chinese State Consul and Foreign Minister Wang Yi this afternoon held this press conference and saying this is the Ukrainian conflict is a very, very complex problem. The solving complex problem, you need to be solve this problem with rationality and calm. And also, China has done a lot of the works. For example, like on the second day of this conflict, President Xi Jinping and President Putin have spoke on the phone and have been urged for early peace talks. And also, and Mr. Wang said we need to prevent a large-scale humanitarian crisis during this conflict. So I think Kent and Shuwei, we have been all following Mr. Wang's press conference this afternoon. What impressed you the most about China's stance?
Yeah, I want to add one point about the humanitarian issue. We know the politicalization of the humanitarian situation is not correct, but that will be an issue for all of us to worry about, because we know the humanitarian is a very complicated issue that needs a lot of coordinations among different parties, the Ukrainian government, the Russian government, the relevant departments, and also the regions in the Donbass. And we know if we cannot handle very well, that will delay the issue. But for outsiders, they will blame the parties, and they will say who is responsible. And if someone break this kind of agreements, we know the humanitarian corridor is very few agreements reached between Moscow and Ukraine. But if someone has break that agreement, or was in the social media narrative or media narrative was breaking the agreement, that will take a lot of moral responsibility and will be blamed or even condemned by some politicians. So politicalization will be
Shuwei, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. You can just continue later on, because I have this question to ask to Mr. Rome before he leaves us in this chat room. Mr. Rome.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Rome. This afternoon, the State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi mentioned about this humanitarian aid cannot be politicized. How can we understand this?
Well, I think thereby not politicize this issue, I think China is trying its best to draw a line about the consequences of politicizing the humanitarian situation. Because after all, I think we are talking about a very difficult, very complicated issues. The conflict that's been going on, I think, for more than 10 days, and I don't see there's a sign that it's going to be the tension is going down. Rather, there are all the possibilities that the tension, the conflict will going up, will be more tensions. And the very fact that the two sides agreed to address issues is to be welcomed. But as I said, that China clearly aware and following up the development of the situation on the ground, that is the danger there. And so I think by focusing on two sort of dimensions. One is that the continued efforts for peace talks, for negotiation, for dialogue, for diplomacy is important. But in the meantime, before I think the conflicting sides reach an agreement, then the urgent issues, the emerging issues, the most important issue that we have 1.5 million sort of refugees, humanitarian situation has to be addressed. But for that, it has to be again addressed with sincerity. And the 6 point, I think, initiative for that is a very big and major contribution from Chinese side. And China also made it very clear that the role of UN has to be, I think, emphasized. And this is again with the help, provide some mechanism for monitoring, for enforcement, and in the meantime, I think to follow up what is happening, because the two sides, there are agreements, disagreements, and other reports, disinformation, all these kind of things. So if we can bring the UN in this sort of issue, it would be again a very good sort of a way to address that. All in all, I think we hope that conflict, the tension will be going down and situation can be calmed down. But before we reach that, I think the priority issue, the top priority issues is the humanitarian situation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rono. We appreciate your time. We know you're very busy. You have to go before 8 o'clock. So once again, thank you so much for being with us in chat room. We hope to talk to you later.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye for now. I think we can talk this question to Jingjing, because the Jingjing is the only one of us who's been covering the two sessions and the Foreign Minister Wang Yi's press conference were held during the two sessions. So what's your take on this afternoon's press conference?
Guys, I was in the press conference room, when Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi gave this presser and about China's foreign policies, international relations, and it was a room full of international reporters. And basically, what's China's stance on this conflict is the first question raised by international reporters. It was asked by Reuters. Basically, they were pressuring China. Like, what's your stance? Tell us. Are you supporting or what? Like, tell us. Basically, that's their attitude. But it's interesting. And over the past few days, we've seen several international media and countries, they're trying to ask China, okay, China, you need to condemn Russia, or you help us to negotiate a ceasefire, whatever, you help us. And it's interesting. New York Times also published this article pressuring China, you need to help us negotiate. In the meantime, America, U.S. Marines sent a war vessel to Taiwan Strait, and also Mike Pompeo visited Taiwan. So, I mean, are you really asking for help and also send a war vessel to threat you? So this attitude from this government is really hilarious. But you can see, like, China is very neutral during the whole situation. China is non-alignment, not involved in any conflicts. But it's interesting to see that these governments are pressuring China now. And if you are not condemning, then you are supporting. So we're going to sanction you now. And we do see several congressmen from the United States are threatening China to throw sanctions towards you and asking the American governments to prepare the next war with China. It's really interesting. But I think something else President Wang Yi said, we also need to mention, I think we need to be addressed, is the China's relationship, the China-Russia relationship is based on non-alliance, non-confrontation, and non-targeting of any third party. So this is important. China has friendly relationship with both countries, and we have Chinese citizens in both countries, and also we have people from Ukraine and Russia in China a lot. So China has very friendship with both countries, and China is very neutral and doesn't provoke wars between these two countries. And China, from the day one, no matter how many times foreign governments and foreign media pressuring China to show your stance, China has always been clear. Negotiation, guys, calm down. Let's sit down and talk and sort this out peacefully. And now China is providing this humanitarian aid for Ukraine, and also will make sure do everything possible to evacuate Chinese citizens and to those with Ukrainian family members to evacuate to other countries. So, I mean, this is China's stance. I think this government really needs to stop asking China to condemn either side.
Kent, 中国其实一直 ，so 我们没有，我们跟这个冲突本身是没有关系的哈，但是中国好像被动的被卷进了很多网上的讨论啊，你怎么看这个问题
？Yeah, it's not our war, but the Chinese position, I think is very balanced. 就是说我 个人的评价呢，就是我们听了今天这个王毅国务委员兼外交部长在记者会上的这个表态啊，我认为呢，中方的观点呢一向呢是公正和理性的啊，那就是王毅外长呢实际上阐述了中方在乌克兰危机问题上的一贯立场，就是我们坚持从事情本身的是非曲直出发，我们做独立判断，表明态度，是吧？当然，像王毅外长讲说，冰冻3尺非一日之寒，是吧？就是说，是吧？一块冰是吧，冻了这个1米厚的冰，那显然不是一天就能冻成的啊。所以这里面有非常深刻的历史的原因，事情呢也比较复杂。中方呢一直坚持的这个概括起来呢是4点意见，说第一点呢就是我们必须坚持。
Principles of 4 opinions. The first one is that we are going to stick to the principles that this conflict is going to be addressed by United Nations charters, and we should respect the sovereignty and independence of each one of the country. The second principle is that each one of the country is inseparable, and we should take care of all the reasonable concerns from both parties. And third point is that through dialogue and negotiations, we are going to address the Russian-Ukraine conflict peacefully. And the fourth point is that we are going to build a balanced, sustainable, and effective regional balance and order. I believe this 4-point is a quite practical method to address the current conflict. Definitely, the foreign minister has also mentioned that as a country, China has 2 suggestions to the 2 parties. We should put the 2 parties on the negotiation tables, and we should avoid any potential humanitarian crisis. Under such circumstances, the China's stance is in line with the situations. And China has also announced that we are going to provide the emergent humanitarian aid to Ukraine. This is showing China's responsibility to the world and also to the Ukrainian peoples. China hopes to play its roles in the negotiation.
Earlier, sorry to interrupt you. You want to continue your...
Yeah, we just continue for the China's role.
On China's stance, right.
For the media coverage and also the UGC from the U.S. politicians, I'm afraid now it's become a blaming game against China. Because, you know, we have a saying on the internet that the conflict is happening between Russia and Ukraine, but many blames goes to China, and that means during the past several years, the U.S. and the European Union, they have many talks, a round of talks with Russia, and they have many agreements. But now after the conflict started, and they are all blaming China, why you don't help us, why you don't do this, do that. So it seems that China is just taking all the responsibility for their fault. I think that is not the good way to calm down the situation and to find rational and reasonable resolutions. And so we know from China's stance that all countries and all blocs.
Sorry, Shuve, I have to interrupt you again. I've been told that the Ukrainian presidential advisor, Mr. Podolak, is heading to negotiation by helicopter.
Okay. We have the latest one.
So this negotiation is underway. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think now the key issue is all countries' legitimate security concerns shall be preserved and shall be respected. And you see, the key issue is how to find a balanced solution. So now you see the NATO's expansion, Russia's view is as a threat, but NATO views Russia as a threat, and Ukraine is just set in the middle. So it is pretty hard for 3 sides now. Now we have these conflicts, and we need to find a better solutions for the European continental security. So that's why China has proposed and advocates all parties to find a solution for a comprehensive and sustainable solution for the European security issue. So that is the ultimate goal, and that is the better solution for a peace in the future. Yeah.
And now joining us in this chat room are Bogdan Trihake. This is our the CGTN strainer from Ukraine, and also Oleg Ostrakov, who is the international relations expert Thank you for being with us. Hey, Bowden, have you just heard what Shui just said about China? There are discussion about China's role in this conflict, even though China was not directly involved in this conflict, but there are many discussion around China, around what China should do in this conflict. Have you seen something like this on internet, or have you ever talked to the friends or families around you? Is there any Ukrainian people who are talking about this?
Yes, thank you for your question, firstly. And I wanted to say that although the whole situation goes around the so-called Ukrainian crisis, which we call Russo-Ukrainian war, it seems that we're lacking Ukrainian experts to have a say on this topic, because I'm a simple civilian. I'm a French teacher and a student, a current refugee from Kiev, the capital. And I'd like to just express my proper opinion. It cannot be taken as totally expertise, because I have limited knowledge in politics. Firstly, I wanted to mention the words about China's neutrality. In my opinion, and generally what Ukrainians who know just a little bit about the politics would say, that China is not that neutral, because Chinese government and the Chinese influencers criticize NATO and the West, even if NATO and the West actually help us with weapons, with humanitarian aid, with diplomacy, and at the same time they don't allow themselves to be criticized. Well, for me it's a bit hypocritical. So if you allow yourself to criticize NATO and the West, you should allow the other ones to criticize you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Oleg, you with me? Hello, Oleg?
Hello?
Hi, thank you for being with us. And Oleg, also, I want to mention that Oleg's been working in China for a long time. So have you watched this press conference this afternoon of Mr. Wang Yi, and what's your take on this?
Yes. So we also hope for neutral role of China in the conflict. And actually, I could agree with all what was said by Minister Wang Yi. So the situation is that is not actually a conflict between Ukraine and Russia. The problem is not in that Russia wants to occupy Ukrainian territory. The problem is a strategical problem, because Ukraine, if would be a member of a NATO organization, it would be endanger Russian security. And especially if Ukraine could obtain a nuclear weapon, it would be much more dangerous. Especially Ukraine has all the capabilities and competences to build up rocket system and nuclear weapons. So we hope that China would help by its neutral position and use its friendly relationship with Ukraine and Russia as well to stabilize the situation, not by sanctions as the Western countries do now, but real support by peaceful progress between two countries.
Okay, thank you, Oleg. As the third round of negotiation is happening, let's talk about this. Let's get back to this topic of this negotiation. So earlier, the Ukrainian negotiator Arahamia said that NATO countries are not ready to even discuss taking Ukraine in. Now, for the next period of 5 or 10 years, he also said that Ukraine is open to discussing non-NATO models for its future. Non-NATO models. This is the first. This is a new concept.
Yeah.
Yes.
We never heard about this
yeah.
before. So gentlemen, what's your take on this non-NATO models? What this model could be like?
Yeah, so as per this person, Haramia said,
Arahamia
said in the interview that the non-NATO models, that means the security of Ukraine, could be guaranteed by major powers like from Germany, from UK, from Russia, from US and China and extra. And it just reminds me about the 1994 agreement, which means the Ukraine government just abandoned its nuclear powers and nuclear weapons, and all major powers signed a kind of a treaty and provide kind of a security guarantee, and that is the multilateral one. But now I think this is a kind of a good progress and could be discussed. But for the details, I think that will need a lot of talks, especially who will be the partners to sign this kind of agreement and what kind of security can be provided and who will be the implementer. And that will take a pretty long time. And now we see the conflict is still happening. And so I don't think it can very quickly solve the conflicts right now. So that may be a future issue for discussion. Yeah.
对，现在的问题就在于，在第3轮谈判中呢，这个乌方啊，这个做出的这个重大表态。
Problem here lies at the third round of the negotiation. The Ukrainian government has committed that about the latest progress of the negotiation. To sum it up, after the first 2 rounds of the negotiation, the third round of the negotiation is the first window of opportunity for the two parties to be close to each other. Before that, the two parties were reaching some of the common ground in the humanitarian corridors. It is not a technical issue, but it is one of the major issues. But it's not concerning the principles which was being put up by the two parties. I could see the attitudes in the Ukrainian government is active and paving ground for the next round of negotiation. We are looking forward to the third round of the negotiations for more fruitful results. On the other hand, we should check about the compositions of the two delegations.
Pretty closer to Moscow's demand that Ukraine should be a neutral and not a part of NATO. So that is much closer. So let's see the latest development. Yeah.
对，因为就是按照这个一般来讲呢，是现在我们看啊，就是实际是一个部长级别的这个会谈，是吧？
Actually, if we are starting from today's perspective, it is actually a ministerial level dialogue. Mr. Minsk used to be the minister of the Ministry of Culture, and there are so many deputy ministers. So this is a dialogue between ministers. For such an important geopolitical conflict, it is quite difficult for them to make the final decisions. Theoretically, they just bring the other party's request to their leaders to make the final judgment. On the other hand, we are looking forward to the next step. Just as Mr. Hawkins has noticed, in Turkey, if their foreign ministers can meet up with each other and have a face-to-face dialogue, that is something to be expected.
Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov is expected to have a meeting with Ukrainian the foreign minister in the Turkey's capital, Ankara.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the latest development of this issue. All right, Danny, are you still with us? I want to ask you. Yeah, I want to ask you what exactly is the non-NATO model, and what could be like the non-NATO model, and also the Mr. Arahamia's saying about this NATO countries are now ready to discuss taking Ukraine in. Do you think it will push or promote this the discussion of the third round of negotiation?
Well, again, just as I've been speaking to you, there have been some further developments in the form of comments from Russian officials, namely Mr. Peskov, the presidential spokesman, who said that this military operation can end any time that Ukraine fulfills the Russian demands. And those demands are, according to Mr. Peskov, that Ukraine has to recognize Crimea as belonging to Russia, recognize the independence of Donetsk and Lugansk republics, and enter, I'm just translating as I speak to you, enter amendments into its constitution and drop the idea of joining any sort of bloc, a reference, of course, to NATO military alliance. And this is something Mr. Oleg, the other guest, spoke about, that this conflict is more than just about Donbass. This conflict is more than just about Russia and Ukraine. This conflict is about the global political order. And Russia has been saying for some time that it challenges, it does not accept a unipolar world dominated by the West, dominated by America, a NATO-aligned liberal bloc, facing off against other global superpowers like Russia and China. Russia has warned that it, for many years, that it wants its security concerns, its security interests to be respected, and has expressed concerns about the creeping NATO expansion towards its borders. This is something Russia says that NATO and the West have failed to understand and failed to respect, and that's why it took this decision to launch this what they call military operation in Ukraine. And really we stand at a pivotal moment now, because as you quite rightly said, a lot of global powers are now being really put under a lot of pressure to take sides. Are you going to condemn Russia? Are you going to join in sanctions against Russia? And of course we know that global superpowers, BRICS nations, India, Pakistan, China, South Africa, all refused to vote against Russia, either in the UN Security Council resolution meeting, in the UN General Assembly. The global condemnation of the conflict was very vocal indeed, and there's been no country of any global significance that has supported Russia in its endeavors in Ukraine. But those key powers, such as China, such as India, in their neutral stance, have actually, in their abstaining from condemning Russia, have actually made a very loud and powerful statement. And we are now at a turning point within the global order. Russia has for many, many years held up US actions, NATO actions in countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, going back all the way to Yugoslavia, as saying, look, this is something that NATO does, the West does, something that Russia does not do. With this action in Ukraine, Russia has made a statement that said, look, you're not the only ones that can defend your interests using force. And again, this isn't a justification of the Russian action. This is simply looking at things from a geopolitical perspective. This now appears to be a turning point for global politics, where the world will not be the same, where blocs, superpowers outside of the NATO Western liberal order, like Russia, like China, can also have the power to defend their interests at times using more than just politics, more than just words. So really, whatever we're going to see over the next few days in terms of those negotiations with the foreign ministers, in terms of the military actions on the ground, it's clear that this is going to have far more global ramifications, not only economically, but geopolitically, than simply a conflict in Europe.
Yeah, yeah. Two key parts. One is Ukraine has a few possibilities to become a NATO member. Second one is Moscow insists Ukraine must recognize that the two self-declared republics as kind of condition for a peace talk. Yeah. So, but Mr. Ken, so why Moscow insists that Ukraine government should recognize the two self-declared republics as a peace agreement conditions?
那这个当然是俄罗斯的一个重点关切吧，因为实际上这个特别军事行动这个
I think it's one of the major concerns of the Russian government. These special military actions, one of the major target or one of the major reasons behind these special military operations is because of the conflict in the Donbas regions. During the decision-making process of the President Putin, one of his personality that he is trying to make things with the framework of the law. It might sound ridiculous if I'm put it in this manner, since he has launched these special military operations, and how can he seek some of the grounds in the legal perspectives? And if you are trying to put yourself in the Moscow's shoes, and first it claim the independence of these two republics, which is going to pave the ground for the future military operations, laying the legal ground for the future military operations. First, they admitted the independence of the two republics, setting up the diplomatic ties, signing up the mutual aid principles and agreement, and later on the military operation was launched at the same time. But from the Russia's perspective and from the legal perspective, first I admitted your independence, and then we built equal diplomatic ties, and then in the terms of the treaties, I have the right to station some of the armies in the republics, and then I launch a special military conflict. It seems like Russia has some reasons to do it, but from the Ukrainian government's perspectives, apparently it is not. First, the Ukrainian government does not admit the independence of these two republics, so the prerequisite does not exist. So these two parties do differ a lot in this event. The two parties have different interpretations even to one event.
另外呢，我想这个刚才补充一下啊，这个 Daniel 讲到这个中国呀和其他几个国家呢，这个包括在联大会议上，包括
Just as Daniel have said,
包括联合安理会投票是吧？
China's attitudes,
俄罗斯是吧？我想
especially during the United Nations Security Council, we have refused to condemn Russia because we have followed our principle that China should always calling for the stakeholders to stay calm and address the problems according to its own rights and wrongs. We are not going to provoke the relevant stakeholders to adopt any manners of the escalations. So before we are showing our attitude, we should think that any attitude might provoke the one party to adopt some of the measures which is going to escalate the confrontations. So I think that the China has some of the reasons to refuse to condemn Russia, and diplomatic condemn is not going to address the problem which is happening in the battleground. It is the art of balancing.
Just to ask, this is that China's not neutral. China's government influencers criticize NATO and the West, even if they help Ukrainians by weapons and humanitarian aid. At the same time, you don't allow them to criticize you. Okay, so guys, how do you, Jinjing, you want to reply to him? Hello, Jingjing? Or Bowden? Or Bowden, you still with us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Jingjing. Did you hear what Bowden?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, I think, yeah.
Did you hear what Bowden said
China is
earlier?
indeed neutral. Yeah. And China indeed criticized NATO and the West, but China never criticized Ukraine or Russia, because I think this is not Ukraine's fault, this is not Russia's fault, and China actually emphasized many times what we are seeing today doesn't just happen overnight. It's a complicated issue, the historical cultural issue between the two countries, and it really should be sorted out by the two countries, two parties. But China criticized NATO because they keep sending weapons to show people to feel this war. And I mean, fielding the war doesn't help to solve this issue. I think, and also China emphasized many times, it's time to negotiate, to ceasefire, sit down, have a peaceful talk. That's like the example Hua Chunying actually gave to the international reporters. It's like when you see two people, your two friends are fighting with each other, do you talk to let them calm down, or do you give them a knife to let them kill each other? Of course, you don't want to give weapons to them to kill each other, right? So, I mean, that's the stance. And I don't know why you think China is not neutral, because China has a lot of citizens studying, living in Ukraine. Having this war doesn't help China at all. And all these Chinese people living in Ukraine have family members. So, I mean, it doesn't help China. So I think China is neutral. Criticize NATO, not just by fueling this war. I think you have to understand the history. When NATO-led countries, UK, the US, bombed Yugoslavia, I mean, this time during this war, all the media keep saying this is the largest world war after the Second World War. It's not. I think all the media forget what happened during the Yugoslavia. NATO-led countries dropped 20,000 bombs in Yugoslavia. Doesn't exist anymore. And during that war, Chinese embassy in Serbia was bombed by Americans' warplanes, and killing 3 journalists, wounded 3 diplomats. I mean, can you imagine drop bombs directly on the embassy of another country? Can you imagine? So many people, and they just said, "Oops, got the wrong app. Sorry."
Yeah, I think it's a connection. Connection is still a little weak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jingjing is still with us.
So
Or Bowden.
Can you hear me?
Not very good, not very clear. You might set up again. I think you might set up again, but I think you have I think Jinju just made a pretty clear statement for this.
Yeah, so
an explanation for this. What do you want to say something?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, I think China is neutral. Number one is Russia and Ukraine are both China's important partners. We know Ukraine is China's strategic partner in Europe, and it's a very important political partner and also economic partner, and also Ukraine is part of the Belt and Road Initiative. We should focus that. So that's why China has both very friendly relations with Moscow and Kiev. So in this conflict, so the cause is not done by China. It's the long-time conflicts between NATO and Moscow after the end of Soviet Union. So China has not any responsibility for causing this conflict. And now China stays neutral in this conflict. And the second part, I think it is not only China who is criticizing NATO. So you see the social media in the Central Eastern Europe, and you see from neighboring countries, NATO was also taking a lot of blames. And even within European Union, you see previously for the Ukraine issues, especially the Donbas regions, the European Union like Macron and Merkel, they have totally different approaches with the US. And please remember, the US, like President Trump and President Biden, they all use Zelensky for their political campaign. We know that during the President Trump's administration, they have the call to President Zelensky to tell him about the Joe Biden's son's business stakes in Ukraine energy companies and what they are doing in Ukraine. And now Biden is still using Ukraine for its domestic agenda. So that is what we see here. So even within Europe, even within the NATO allies, they have totally different approaches. So just taking China as for blame, I think that is not fair for China. And if you see the blaming NATO, many countries are blaming, even within the Europe. And you see for the European Parliament, there are some congressmen. They are also blaming that European now lose again for its independent and comprehensive security. And now they are deepening their security dependency to the US. And a stronger and a more secure Europe has gone. The dream is gone. So that people are very clear what is the situation. So just some people don't want to talk or blame. So I think that is the issue we can just understand. And I know during this conflict time, and many people have their emotion and they have the right to express themselves. But now I think we should also give a very fair say on this issue. And China is not the root for these causes, and we're very far away, but we are still very care about the issues because of the friendly relations, and Ukraine has helped China a lot, and China has helped Ukraine also, and we're also partners. And last year we just celebrated the 10th anniversary of the strategic partner between China and Ukraine, and both presidents, President Xi and President Zelensky, also had a phone call and to support each other's co-interest. So that's why China is still neutral in this conflict, and many people, especially for the Western mainstream media, they just want to find someone to as a scapegoat and just blame China, and they just omit this strategic partner between China and Ukraine. So I just want to emphasize this issue. Yeah.
对，另外呢，我想补充一点啊，这个刚才讲的这非常好，我想补充一点的就是呢，在这个里边我们要
I
认
wanted
真
to
的
add up
考量
something.
这
I
个中
think
国啊
you
当
are
前
well
所处的
put about the relations between China, and we should also think where China is in the world and also the role China plays in the world arena. This is something quite important. I can give you a few examples. For example, Turkey or Israel. They are allies with the United States, and Turkey is also a member of the NATO. At the same time, they have kept a very good relations between Russia and Ukraine. So during these times, Ukrainian crisis, these countries remains neutral, and Turkey even tried to, and also Israel, has been put forward for many times that they can act as mediators and they can put the negotiation table in their own country. China is also follows the same pattern, and we are facing with the same dilemma. For one part, Russia is our comprehensive strategic partners, and Russia and Ukraine is also a strategic partner with us. We feel our sympathy toward the Ukrainian people, but we understand why Russian government takes such action. So China's opinion or China's take on this matter is not as same as Israel or Turkey. China makes this decision based on our own position in the world, our relations with the West, with the United States, and with Europe. It is understandable that China held such a position in the world.
That's why now in the conflict time, they are become a bridge between the West and Russia, and between the bridge between Ukraine and Russia to talk, because both Russia and Ukraine, they trust these partners because their neutrality and they have their independent thinking, not very emotional one. Now you just see for the Western Europe and many countries, now they hardly have the bridge to talk with Russia directly, and the mutual trust is very weak, which is not good for the peace talks right now. So that's why we say China and many other countries keep neutral in these conflicts.
对，所以再补充一句，就是说，在这个问题上指责中国呢，是显然是没有道理的，对吧？这个道理很简单，就是我不站队，是吧？就是一种政治不正确。我认为这个观点本身就是政治不正确。当然我有站队的权利，但是我同样有不站队的权利。
China is lining up at no parties. We have the right to stand for one party, but I have the right to stand for no party on such a matter.
I think they made a clear. I think they have to make it very clearly.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
yes,
can hear
yes,
you.
Yes.
I don't know if you have heard what Xu Wei and Ken and Jingjing said about China's stance. I think they made a clear point.
Of course, I heard the part that was said in English. Unfortunately, I do not possess any knowledge of Mandarin. I just wanted to tell you that, of course, I understand that you see this from this position, but in Ukraine, we regard this very differently. Like Ukraine has been only officially in war 26 times with Russia, so we do not see them as a fraternal nation. They've been enslaving us, they've been using us as a cheap labor force. So, of course, I understand that Russian propaganda works very well. Unfortunately, we do not have Daria today with us, so who could say some more things about that. Yes, of course, I understand your stance about neutrality. Thank you.
You miss her.
Yeah.
Okay, and Xu Wei, you just earlier you mentioned about Turkey and Israel, and all of this country wants to play the role in this in negotiating this conflict. You might have some further explanation on earlier we talked about Turkey, right?
Yes, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
how about you share with us something about the Turkey? Why Turkey might have to play a role in this?
Yeah, I think Turkey's role is very interesting now in this conflict. So we know during the previous Russia's military operation in Syria to fight against ISIS, Turkey has played as a bridge between the West and Russia. And historically, now the Black Sea region, and especially like Crimea and the region of Ukraine in the history, it is the battleground between the West, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire. And now it is also very close to Turkey, so it has affected Turkey's interest. And you see, Turkey is a NATO member, and now they just want to play as a bridge because Turkey is both trusted by the US and Moscow, and Moscow knows they have a very good cooperation in the previous contacts. So I think Turkey now can play a very, very good role, but I think that really depends on the outcomes of the third talks. So if they don't have some concrete results in the third talks, so I think that would be very, very hard for the two ministers from Russia and Ukraine to have a further discussion in Turkey. Even Turkey's role is pretty unique. Yeah.
当然我们还要再看这个第三轮谈判的这个具体结果啊。
Yes.
目前呢，这个谈判这个正在进行中，是吧？
Yes.
结果还没有出来啊。但是总
the
体上来
result
看呢，
generated by the
目前
third
呢，
round of
比较前面。
negotiations, but since the result has not been turned on yet, I am quite optimistic about the effect of the negotiations. At least the third round of the negotiation is going to pave the ground for the two foreign ministers' negotiation in Turkey. If there is no fruit bared by the third round of the negotiations, it is pointless and meaningless for the foreign ministers to meet each other. Generally speaking, I believe the two-party teams up with sincerity to sit on the table and negotiate with each other. This is very important.
Efforts in this conflict we're talking about is Turkey and Israel, and also other European countries that's been involved in this talk. What's your take on the current diplomatic effort so far? Is there any good options to push the whole issue to a more positive way? Is Oleg still with us? Hello, Oleg? Hi, Oleg.
He's on the streets.
Yeah.
No. Oleg, you have to open up your mic. We can hear you. Oh, they might need some time to set up again.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, I've been told that we have a new CGTN strainer joining us in this chat room. We'll talk to Oleg later. It's Mattia Sorbi. He is a freelance reporter who's now in Kharkiv, Ukraine.
All right.
Hello, Mattia. How are you doing now? We know the Kharkiv is a port that has been under heavy bombardment. So tell us the latest, the situation around you.
Yes. Good evening, everybody watching. As you can see behind me, there is only one car every 5 minutes. Is a completely destroyed and ghost town. We have been shelled since a week so far, and I arrived just yesterday. I can report these completely ghost atmosphere, and I could find only one, obviously only one supermarket open. There is a Spar open, but everything else is completely closed and destroyed around. Only one hotel is working in all the city, which is the second largest city of Ukraine, with as you guys know, with 1.5 million inhabitants. After Kiev is the second largest, and the shellings is going on every night, and we have curfew every night after 6 p.m. till 6 a.m.
After 6 p.m.
Okay, so I have to remind us is that the Kharkiv is the city, the second largest city of Ukraine, and this is the one of the most under the heavy attack right now. So this is a very precious clips that we can have the CGTN streamer in the Kharkiv. This is the martyr Sorby. Ken, do you want to give us a little background about the city?
Oh,
the Kharkiv.
哈尔科夫呢
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Basically,
The city
when
of
I
Kharkov.
arrived, I slept in the train station because when the train arrives late night from Kiev, because of the curfew, you can't go out from the train station. So I had the chance to talk and see many refugees and refugees. And the situation, of course, it's not a paradox, is very calm, obviously, during the day because it's a ghost town. In the night, the shelling starts even from Russia because the border with Russia is relatively close, and the grades can be shelled even from Russia. I would like to show you around, and I also will try, for example, these street. The thing is that some police is coming to me right now. I will show the press pass. I'm an Italian journalist. Yeah. Document.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry for the
once again, the Czech documents.
No problem. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
It's just Italian.
Document is
Mattia.
Passport.
Passport. Okay, in the local language.
Any documents.
Maybe you guys want to,
Yeah, passport or something to prove your identity. Yeah.
So
it's
are you safe now?
No, well.
I just have to show to the police is kind.
Yeah.
There is no problem.
All right.
Our reporter Mattia has been asked by the local police to show
It's okay. Don't cut off. Don't cut off.
Don't. Yeah.
Everything is fine.
Don't cut off.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Mattia.
Okay.
That's bad.
Okay, be careful.
Just broadcasting.
So they're still checking the passport.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. See, this was a great chance for you guys. Now I can even broadcast freely. I want to underline as I was about to say, actually, the police is cooperative. They help us. I have to be honest. I just show live my passport. They are doing their job, and the feeling is that the population is very united. We were talking just before the interruption, and I apologize. How is the feeling in the city, the atmosphere? I can report you guys, for people watching, how this big city now shows a real unification between the people, because frankly speaking, almost everybody already evacuated. So it's a ghost town, because I think in town are living at the moment about 500,000 people in the second largest city of Ukraine. So many women, many children completely evacuated, left yet, but the people remaining are helping each other with food, with some money chain. So I can tell you that I saw many old people at the train station have been helped by volunteer, and this is working for sure. Actually, this topic reminds us clearly to the fact that everybody now is talking about the humanitarian corridor. So I'm reporting from a ghost town which is very involved by this humanitarian corridor. And as you guys know, Russia is using this humanitarian corridor to help the people, but also to declare a conquest. It's a way that the humanitarian corridor is used to evacuate civilian for sure, but only in the Russian direction. These people cannot choose to be evacuated from the other side to the Ukrainian European side. So frankly speaking, the humanitarian corridor is still very important.
All right.
Everybody hope that today and tomorrow they can find an agreement in Belarus between Ukraine and Russia. But it's important to underline that so far Russia is imposing or it's creating a humanitarian corridor only for the people that wants to go actually in Russia, and maybe this is not fair enough.
Martia, there's a lot of our internet users and viewers that have been watching this chat room, and they're very curious about you because you've been asked by the local police to show them your identity. What kind of identity files you've been showing to the police? Is the passport or a special pass during the conflict? If it's possible, can you show us this little file?
Definitely.
Are you safe now?
Definitely. Yes, definitely. They just asked me kindly. I have to underline this for the people watching. This is my Italian passport, the purple one, and is also a coincidence that the Italian journalist press pass. We have a chamber of journalists in Italy. It's also purple, the small one, and I appreciate the support of all your viewers, and I can see the other colleagues very kind with me from their face, and it's beautiful. But it's important to say they just made their job, and somewhere else this could be a much bigger problem just for reporting. So it's actually nice and important that that happened, of course, completely by chance. And I was scared actually for the people watching, because who never knows. But I think this is part of our conversation, how we can be free as journalists, how can we report this war from both sides, and how much the freedom of press involved also this new century war. This is completely, I think, this completely fits our conversation about the war.
Yeah, everyone in this chat room, feel free to ask the question to Martia. I think this opportunity is really, really precious, because Martia is a CGTN strainer, is right now in Kharkiv, the second largest city of the Ukraine, has been under heavy attack. So Martia, where do you live now?
Yeah.
You said the city has been a
also-
ghost town now. So where do you live? Can you access to food and water or grocery?
Definitely. This is also an important question, not only a good question, because there is a small story behind it. Just this one that finished. And of course, in a new century ghost town, what you do, you try to open your Airbnb, and actually Airbnb works. Every hotel is
still working in
yeah.
Kharkiv.
So there is Airbnb in Kharkiv.
Still right now.
Yeah, like
What a
every
surprise.
hotel, every classic hotel, it's definitely shut down.
All right.
But you can find 6 available openings in Kharkiv, and only one answered me, and it turned out to be a pretty decent, fine hotel, and I'm very happy to sleep in this place. It's very clean, and it's very comfortable, and this is also part of my story, of my reportage in Kharkiv. Airbnb hotel, definitely it's a solution.
Where are those rooms? Are they in the downtown of this city or on the outskirts of this city? To stay away from this the areas to be under attack.
I was, thanks for asking. I was definitely thinking to sleep in the outskirts for avoiding the heavy shellings. By the way, I'm sleeping in the center, not too far, unfortunately, from these heavy shells that now we can enter to see. But I was told that I have a shelter, a bomb shelter. I visit these shelter, and I feel pretty safe. Thanks for asking. It's in the center, but again, it's in a street where I was told that it's very hard that it's going to be a target, because basically there is no target in my street. But we all know that Kharkiv unfortunately have some heavy shellings inside the city, because basically what is happening is that the Russians are definitely superior on the sky power. They are very superior and powerful on air force. When it comes to the ground force, when it comes fighting tanks, I have to report, like everybody knows, that the Ukrainian are, they have good weapons from the United States, ground weapons against tanks, and other countries from Europe help the Ukrainian army. So basically the Russians are shelling the city to evacuate the most, to scare the civilian, to scare the people to leave the city. And for now, they hope to win the conflict just shellings. It's hard to believe that they could win this war just with the Air Force. And that's why we all know that this war is going to last, and it's not going to finish anytime soon. Just because the army inside the city of Kharkov, inside the city of Kyiv, inside the city of Odessa, Mariupol, is resisting pretty much. So it's very hard to win the battle for the city. The battle for the air sky is already won by the Russian.
Yeah, Mario,
but the battle for the ground, for the real power of the city, is hard to be won.
Yeah, so Mario, how long do you think this this fire exchanges will last? Like few more weeks, or?
Yeah. I have been thinking about that and studying this issue. It seems to me that it's going to last more than 1 month.
So
actually,
is there fire on?
Everybody thought that it was possible to win Ukraine for Russia in a couple of weeks. But I think this war is going to last more than 1 month for sure.
So the shelling just happened. We heard the sound of bombs.
No.
All right.
No, maybe very far, but it's supposed to start after 6 p.m. local time.
Okay, so it's a regular shelling after 6.
Yeah, there are some shellings every now and then in the city, and I think this afternoon, unfortunately, a market in the outskirts has been shelled, but the city center right now looks very calm, to be honest.
All right. Yeah.
I wish I could show you more about this place, but the police is patrolling
Patrolling, okay.
Yeah, before basically just 20 minutes ago there was nobody, but now it's hard for me to show. If you guys want, I can try to ask a few questions to the police and try to, but maybe it's not necessary.
All right.
Okay, so Martia, can you introduce a little bit about where you are right now? It's in the downtown of the city, or?
Yeah, definitely. This street is super central, and it's called Independence Street, as many Ukrainian, Russian, Belarusian city in the center have a big avenue that is called Independence Street.
All right.
And one thing that I would like to show you in far away, it's a historical building that unfortunately has been shelled with you know pretty well the symbol of the worker, the hammer, and there is a tower, and it's a normal. We have not. I don't want to emphasize these destruction, because it's something that happened already in Donetsk, in Lugansk. It's terrible. It's definitely terrible and sad, bloody. I can report to you now live this street, but the condition around Kharkov are pretty similar. So it's a very hard situation. Talking about where I am, I can tell you that everything, literally, in the business center, in what used to be the city center, is completely gone. It's completely gone. Here you can see a bank, for example.
I think this is supposed to be along the street.
An important bank
was
shut, and you can see the bankomat. This was a bank. It's like when you go in the main street of a big city. Of course, you have sport, shopping mall, banks, and you have a restaurant, cafe. Now I'm walking literally in the middle of the glacier. There is still a noisy that maybe you have heard before. It's still the bank alarm. It's still the bank alarm, and then you have you see a BMD completely destroyed. It's a war. It's a real war. It's happening every night.
It's so sad to see such a destruction in such a long history city.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for reminding the watcher. It's such an historical city, which is very sad to see in this condition. And let me tell you again why they are shelling every night. Okay. Because the Ukrainian army is resisting on the ground in the outskirts of Kharkov. So the Russian tanks and the Russian army was not able to enter in the city like in Kherson. If you see the war in Kherson, just in the south of Ukraine, not far from Mariupol and Odessa, you know that Kherson is under the Russian control.
Yeah, for your reference, Kherson is the city that's been completely under the control of Russian military.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Midi.
Here, I can report for you guys relatively peacefully at this time of the day, because there is no war inside the city by ground. It's only from the sky, which is very, very sad, because this is the church. Very nice, I promise you to watch. So now we can go in this direction. And that's why I'm showing you this image, because the Russian can win Kharkov only from the sky.
Yeah, there's no
but of course they need
anymore.
But
just the airstrike.
Yeah, of course they need to enter with the tanks, and we don't know when this is going to be possible or if it's going to be possible.
Yeah.
So I will try to go very close to this amazing old church.
Yeah.
You can see the classic Orthodox Christian. Yeah. So
take a photo of this. This might be the last time you saw something like that. If the airstrike is continue, all of the building, all of the beautiful historical building in front of us might disappear.
This is also an important part of the story, that because both sides are very Christian and Orthodox, they share the same religion and culture, the Russian and the Ukrainian. This is a sad part of the war, but because of that, I think that this amazing cathedral will be saved. And they really share the same Christianity, so
their cultural
it's important. And see, next to the church there is still a restaurant completely destroyed.
Oh no, it's destroyed.
We are in the middle of this very calm and empty, silent street.
Yeah, Maddie, you've been one of our CGTN strainer has been entering this very heart of battlefields. From you're coming from Italy, right?
Yeah.
You might just tell us a little bit how you get into this country. You might just tell us a little bit about how you get into this country, how you get into the city that you're now, the Kharkiv.
I actually came from Hungary and from Budapest. I was able to find a train to enter in the west part of Ukraine, Outskirts, which is very far from here. And the train stations are still working, not completely, but you can find trains twice a day. So from Outskirts, I arrived in the capital, in Kyiv, and in the night, I found a train with the Ukrainian army that were going to defend their city in Kharkov. So I traveled with some British soldiers too, because now there are international soldiers joining the Ukrainian army. And we arrived by train yesterday night.
Okay.
So from Italy, I went to Hungary, and from Hungary I entered in Ukraine.
All right.
Okay. Is that tough to get into the conflict zone?
I would say if you are a journalist like me from Western Europe, of course I'm Italian, and you want to go to Ukraine with some permission, some credential, you can go in the front line too. The sad part is that it's very hard to report from Russia. I tried I was in Russia actually just a week ago reporting. It's very difficult because it's unfortunately a political topic, in the sense that unfortunately there is also a political war between Russian journalists and Ukrainian journalists. They blame themselves to be each other propaganda. So for an Italian reporter in Russia, you cannot do everything you want, because basically, even I want to report something maybe real, and I want to report real facts from Russia, I am still a citizen of a NATO country. Italy is part of the NATO, so I feel more comfortable reporting from Ukraine, basically.
I believe.
As Italian.
Oh, understand.
Yeah.
You know, Mattia, there's a lot of viewers who's watching this chat room, and they like your reporting, and all of us in the chat room right now, all of our guests are liking your reporting. So there's some of our viewers that ask, it sounds pretty quiet and calm during the daytime, so will you heard more shelling during the nighttime, or why this military operation will getting intense during the nighttime? This is a question from our viewer.
No, I don't know why, but I hear you very, very low, but I heard the question about why, if I got it, why they shell, especially in the evening and night time.
That's a question.
Yeah, I do feel there is still a sense of respect for the citizen and the common people. Russia, now it started. This is shelling.
We are hearing the bombardment.
Yeah.
This is real. This is real, but there is still a sense of respect for the left behind in the city. I do want to report, I do believe that not for long, but Russia is trying not to destroy everything. Of course they can, and I do believe they shall, especially in the night, to let the people live during the day, and also because it's harder for the Ukrainian army to protect themselves in the night. It's much better from an army strategic point of view to attack a weaker army in the night, so the Ukrainian can be in real trouble in the night, and they cannot defend themselves pretty good, very well, just like in the day. So I know that the night is the perfect moment to destroy the Ukrainian army and to go little by little inside the city. Nobody knows when this will happen, maybe never, because the fight is really intense. The Ukrainian army, despite the night's shellings, is reacting very, very good. It's a real war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you just join in this chat room, we are live in cross with our CGTN streamer, Matti Sorby, who is our freelancer reporting. He is right now in Kharkiv, the second largest city of Ukraine, which has been under a very, very heavy attack. We just heard the sound of the shelling inside the city. So everyone,
that's correct.
You have any question to ask Martia? The Martia is still with us in Kharkiv.
Yes.
Martia, how many media is reaching out to you? Do you have do you report for other? Yeah.
Yes. The southern part of Ukraine, it's pretty well covered by the Western media, and Mariupol and Odessa is definitely the place where many Western media are. In Kharkiv, if I'm not wrong, we had a few days ago the CNN reporting, the BBC, so it's great to be part of your channel too. And there is a lot of fear actually in the city. So to be honest, it's not the favorite city of many reporters to be in. Many media are trying to avoid to be inside the city, but it's definitely a place that must be covered. And let's remind to the people watching that it's a crucial city for the Russian to win Ukraine, because they are trying to win Kyiv, of course, the capital, but they need to win Kharkiv in order to take the south. Kharkiv is the second largest city, not far from the Russian border. It's crucial in this war, and is definitely losing population, and it's almost collapsed, by the way.
Yeah.
They are resisting very, very in a brave way, but talking about the media coverage, definitely the main Western media are here with me, but not every day.
Yeah, Mattia, we know you've been busy. You've been tired by talking so much, but we still have a lot of a question for you. Jingjing, you have some question to ask Mattia?
Reporter, I do thank you so much for your reporting. It's wonderful. Like, you are showing us some image that not many people are showing. So, and do keep yourself safe. But I want to ask you, do you see any casualties? How's the casualty among like citizens, civilians, and are civilians being wounded? Do you feel yourself safe leaving that city?
Well, thank you, Jingling, very much for taking care also. Actually, I chose as the first reportage to report from the city center, because despite looks destroyed, which it is, it's paradoxically safe. Because as you heard very well, these shellings are relatively far away. About casualties, this question, it's very, very important. I've been reporting following an army soldier, very brave, very young. He was just trained as commander in Poland. So of course, the help of NATO country is very crucial for the Ukrainian army. The casualties are definitely very far away from me in this moment. in the outskirts. They fight, and again, the fight basically works with weapons that the Ukrainian army is using from the land, from the ground, against the aircrafts. So basically, the Ukrainian army has almost no air force. So what they do is that they use very modern Stinger weapons in order to shell and destroy helicopters, Russian aircrafts, and so on. So the war for Kharkiv is definitely a land-sky war. It's a very hard battle for the Ukrainian, but as we know, every day so many Russian soldiers also died. So about casualties, they are in the outskirts, but we can definitely watch what's going on. And again, the sky-land kind of battle is the one to be focused on.
Thank you, Maria. This is Maria Sorbi, the CGTN strainer, reporting for us in Kharkiv, the second largest city of Ukraine. Keep safe, and I'm looking forward to talking to you soon in chat room. So, gentlemen, we have before we go, we got some latest development of the third round of negotiation. The Russian delegation has said they're ready for the third round of negotiation. They're waiting for the Ukrainian delegation.
All right.
Yeah. So it seems that the new round of negotiation is starting up.
Yes.
Any takes before we go? You want to wrap up this today?
Yeah, so
after you heard so much about the Martius reporting from Ukraine, nobody liked the conflicts, nobody liked the war, nobody liked the historical city has been ruined, but it's just happening. And we have some more deep, but there are many other things to consider about. This is not just about a city. This is the whole international landscape. Anything you want to share?
当然，首先这个感谢Marty 给我们带来的这个精彩的报道，是吧？这个
First, I want to thank Marty for his frontline report. His report is quite exciting, bringing us what is happening in the city of Kharkov, bringing us the reality of Kharkov. And from his camera, we understand the cruelty of the war itself. We hope the two parties, the two governments, could keep calm and address the conflict through dialogue and negotiation. I think first we should care about the massive crisis it might create. And I hope the two parties could keep calm and avoid the escalations of the situations and allow a safe and steady and stable humanitarian corridors for the local people.
And it is pretty sad to see the conflict has destroyed many historical buildings. And as the third round talks started, I think both sides can have a deeper exchange about the core parts in the negotiation, non-NATO models and humanitarian corridors, and not to turn this kind of issue become another blaming game. And because people's lives really, really matters, and we don't want this conflict to escalate it again. And please just give this humanitarian corridor a chance. And I think as long as we have a further step for these negotiations, and we can have more detailed talks to bring this peace soon.
Give it a piece of chance.
Give peace a chance. And all of those footages to bring back from Monty is pretty heartbreaking.
Pretty heartbreaking.
We understand that, but like Chinese State Councilor Mr. Wang, you said this afternoon in the press conference that the reason behind this conflict is really, really complicated. So what we can do is sit down and keep calm and sit down for talks, and that's the only way to to solve the issue like this.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's looking forward for a peaceful resolution, and we hope. And tomorrow we'll be discussing the outcome of the third round of negotiation. And this is a chat room and produced by China Global Television Network in its global headquarters in Beijing. I'm Yang Zhao, and bye for now. Good night.